Hi, I'm Captain Cothran, Chief Deputy for the Newton County Sheriff's Office, and today I'm on the road with Rebecca Goddard, Executive Director for the North Central Indiana Rural Crisis Center. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, we want you to tell us a little bit about the Crisis Center, starting with the location.
Well, actually, the Crisis Center is a confidential location, but I can tell you that it's in the Rensselaer area, and we keep that location confidential for security reasons.
And what's your service area?
The service area is Newton, Jasper, and Pulaski counties.
And could you tell us a little bit about the services that the Crisis Center provides?
Yeah, the Crisis Center provides, first and foremost, emergency shelter for victims of sexual assault, domestic violence, and stalking. Those emergency shelter services include things like meals, personal care items. It can include things like clothing or medications, prescriptions, anything like that that is sort of an emergency need. We have 3 advocates on staff. We have a client advocate who works primarily with victims of domestic violence. We have a client advocate who works primarily with victims of sexual assault. And we have a child advocate who works with children who have been either the victim of some sort of domestic violence, whether it's a teenager who maybe has experienced some kind of dating violence themselves, or a child who has experienced some violence at home. And even sometimes we collaborate with schools to provide services to kids who haven't necessarily experienced these things, but are sort of identified as being at risk of them based on some circumstances.
And kids growing up in that environment, I mean, it takes a toll on them, right?
Absolutely.
So you have the advocates that work directly with the children to help them get through that.
Yes.
Great. How about transportation?
We do offer some limited transportation services for things like appointments and job interviews, things like that that are sort of an emergency need.
Okay. And I know you brought this on yourself a couple years ago. Tell us about the limited legal services that are provided.
We offer legal representation by a licensed attorney for some basic services that are related to domestic violence or sexual assault. So those types of things would include protective orders, some family law cases that are more emergency in nature.
2020 has not really been good to anyone, and I'm guessing that your funding sources aren't what they have been.
Definitely not.
Radiothon. Usually the Crisis Center does a pretty major fundraiser on Radiothon
Yes.
in May each year. How did that work out for 2020?
It didn't at all. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we were not able to have that fundraiser at all.
Okay, so your major fundraiser to help work the Crisis Center wasn't able to happen this year. So here we are in November, and Sheriff Van Fleet each November has allowed for a deviation from our grooming standards for the deputies and staff. And the way that works is each participant puts in $25, makes a donation. This year is going to the Crisis Center. And it's not just the employees. We've had a lot of citizens. In fact, so far this year, we've gotten quite a few very generous donations, which is going to the Crisis Center. So we encourage the community's support with this and helping us to help the Crisis Center to help the victims. What's the best ways that donations can get to you?
Donations can be made directly to the Crisis Center by mail. Those can be sent to Crisis Center, Post Office Box 212, Rensselaer, Indiana 47978.
Okay, and we've been very fortunate this year that the Jasper Newton Foundation has teamed up with us on this. A person can go to their website, jaspernewtonfoundation.org. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a Give Now tab. They would scroll for the Crisis Center and can make a donation through the foundation directly to the Crisis Center to make it even easier. Is there any other needs that the shelter might have?
There are. The shelter always needs basic cleaning supplies, just the same types of things that everyone kind of uses in their homes. Things like laundry detergent, dish soap, disinfecting products, dishwasher pods are a big thing that we often need.
How about fuel cards?
Fuel cards are a great thing when we have those. That's really helpful to us because sometimes our clients have their own vehicles, so they don't need us to drive them places, but they may not have the means to put gas in their car to be able to get to things like appointments or job interviews or to go out and look for housing.
And for the material things, the cleaning supplies, the fuel cards, what's the best way to get those to the crisis center?
The best way is really to call the shelter and make arrangements with our client advocate to get those items picked up. The shelter's phone number is area code 219-866-8281, and our client advocate's name is Misty, and she'd be happy to arrange pickup of any items that were donated.
Excellent. Anything else for us today?
You know, I would just like to take this opportunity to say thank you and give some recognition to our wonderful staff at the shelter. Our advocates and resident coordinators and everyone who works there really has just gone above and beyond this year. You know, obviously we've had a lot of challenges with COVID and restrictions and new policies we've had to put into place, and there's just been a lot of change this year, and every one of those people who work at the shelter has just done a wonderful job of being flexible and accommodating, and they come in every day just excited to do their job and do the best that they can to make a difference.
And they do. They truly have a passion for the victims and the work that they do.
Very much so.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me.